In this video, we're going to talk about dot plot graphs. Now, a dot plot graph uses dots to represent information. So here's an example of a dot plot. It's pretty simple. It's very similar to a bar graph in the fact that we can see these stacks of dots, and quickly we can see which ones are the tallest stacks, which one's the shortest stack. Pretty simple, but let's talk about the different parts of this graph. We have the title, which is going to be extremely important for us here in just a second. We have the x-axis information down here. We can see that this has something to do with points scored. So I'm assuming they either scored 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 points. But what are the dots? What do the dots represent? Well, if we know that points scored is the x-axis, we can look back at our title and go, okay, well, we've got that covered, points scored. So that leaves the other part of the title, Quidditch games, to represent, or represented by the dots. So the dots represent the number of games. So for instance, looking at number 1 over here on the left, there were 2 Quidditch games in which they only scored 1 point, because above the 1 is 2 dots representing 2 games. So what we could do is certainly make this like a bar graph and think of these as bars and put the numbers above our dots so that we can do some math problems. Now, I mean, we only have 1, 2, 3 dots. It's not that complicated, right? Do we really need to do the numbers above the bars? Well, how about something like this? Right? This might be a little more appropriate type of problems that you might see. Might have quite a few dots, and you're going to be asked some math problems. And do you want to have to go back and keep counting the dots over and over? Probably not. Right? So I think treating these as bars, and I'm not saying necessarily that you have to put bars around your dots, just to give you a visual. So we have 5 dots in that column, 9, 3. How about in this one? In points scored, 4. How many games? 6. And in our last column, how many points scored? We have 5 points scored. How many games did they score 5 points? 8. All right, so let's get into a problem here, and you can see I've dropped the bars. Not important. In how many games did the team score more than 3 points? More than 3. Well, if they scored 1 point, is that more than 3? If they scored 2 points, is that more than 3? If they scored 3 points, is that more than 3? Now, I would say that the only 2 bars that we need to look at in this problem is 4 and 5, because those are both numbers greater than 3. So we can see the 6 and the 8 would get added, 14 games. All right, and how many games did the team score 3 or fewer? 3 or fewer. So does that include the number 3? Yeah, because it says they scored 3 or fewer, meaning 2 and 1. 4 and 5 is out. So here we have the 5, the 9, and the 3. We add those together, we get 17. In how many games did this team score between 1 and 5? Between them. So does that include 1 and 5? Well, I would argue no, it does not include 1 and 5. Unless the question said between 1 and 5, including 1 and 5, or however they want to phrase it. If it wants just the ones that are between them, then we're just looking at 2, 3, and 4, and we can see that we can add the 9, the 3, and the 6 together and get 18 games. How many games were played? How many total games were played? Well, we know the dots represent games. So if we want the total number of games, we just need to add up our stack of dots. 5 plus 9 plus 3 plus 6 plus 8 will give you 31. That's a tough one. This one here is the tough one. how many total points were scored. Total points. Now what you're not going to do is add 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 because those are points scored. That would mean that they only played 5 games and they scored 1 in this one and 2 in this one, and 3 in this one, 4 and 5 in the last one. That's only 5 games. We can see they clearly played more than 5 games. So what we need to do is we need to consider each dot and how many points were scored for each dot. So all of these dots, they only scored 1 point. So that's a total of 5. In all of these points, or all of these games, they scored 2 points, which gives us a total of 18. So how many in the third column, 3 points scored? How many games do we have? 3. So how many points would that be total if each one was 3 points? 3, 3, 3, which is 9. And you can see I've done the rest of those. So in the fourth column, each dot is worth 4. So add those up or multiply, you get 24. All of these in the last column are worth 5 points. Add them up or multiply, and you get 40. Now we can add up all the points. So when you get a question like this, which is how many total points, then this is an excellent strategy. Is just put the numbers next to all of them so that you can see how many points were scored total. The thing that needs to be remembered is use the title, or sometimes you can get information from the problem, whatever the problem's asking you. But you certainly can go to the title to learn what the dots represent, because you need to know what those dots mean. And looking at your title will give you that information. Also, label the columns of dots with numbers, just like you would in a bar graph. So that way you don't have to keep going back and counting those dots over and over again.